мною принято решение о проведении специальной военной операции.
We are under attack. It is an attack against Western democracies and on the institutions that bind them.
What Russia's much more interested in doing is depicting the West as a failure.
The regime and President Yanukovych, they were trying to protect their enormous wealth.
This is Kremlin File.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Kremlin Files Week in Review. And tonight we're going to start with a story that Olga, when we woke up this morning and we saw exactly what had happened, the most massive Russian missile strike to date in Ukraine. And, several thermal power plants that were operated by DTEC, and which is Ukraine's largest private energy company, were hit during the strike. And they launched 150 missiles and drones against Ukrainian cities, hitting infrastructure, the power grid, 20 electrical substations from the last count, and at least 7 people from the last count. I have to look at the figures, I guess, in the morning. I know when we get up again, but 7 people have died, been killed, 15 others have been injured. Just absolutely horrific. Absolutely horrific. In the Dnieper region, for example, 1,000 miners remained underground due to the shelling and for lack of electricity, because they couldn't get them up and out. So I know that certain Poland, Slovakia, and Romania have stepped in to give emergency services right away. Immediately they did so. Kharkiv got hit really hard.
My friend in Kharkiv too. A day later, I was up all night because of this terrorist attacks across the country, and he still doesn't have electricity.
No.
And the electricity is rolling back into Kharkiv, but it is horrible. And the scenes that were coming out from all the train stations, the metro stations, with people, hiding from these missile attacks. And I just want to remind everyone, this is the second night in a row, because the night before they launched a series of terrorist attacks across all Ukrainian cities. I mean, the whole map, every region of Ukraine was red. And and this is happening as the U.S. Congress, thanks to Speaker Johnson, who has still refused to put a vote on the floor, they left for vacation today. That's it. They'll be back in April. That's it.
2 weeks.
Russia's not taking a vacation to kill and murder innocent civilians. But Speaker Johnson and Congress, have to go on vacation.
No, it's unconscionable, and I just simply don't understand it. At this point, it's absolutely, you just can't understand something like this.
No.
You really can't. Really can't. And then something else hit. Olga.
Yeah, so then by midday New York time, there were reports of a terrorist attack inside of Russia in Crocus city center. There were about 6,000 people, gathered for a concert. Interestingly, Crocus Center is where Trump had his Miss Universe pageant about a decade ago. So a bunch of men burst in with machine guns, started shooting people. Then there were explosions. The roof of the center collapsed, and the whole roof is actually engulfed in fire. And hey, Cole, this actually, interestingly enough, this terrorist attack in Moscow comes on the same day that Peskov, Putin's press secretary, announced that officially Russia is at war. So no longer will you get arrested for using the word war It's no longer a special military operation. And as they begin, mobilization, and I mean, it'll be interesting to see where this goes. But as far as now, there are 40 dead, I
Yeah.
believe over 100 injured, and as of minutes before we started this recording, ISIS has taken responsibility for
Okay.
this attack.
Okay. Okay. We'll be continuing with this story next week, okay, in our next week in review, with whatever transpires and what information that we're able to get from different sources to bring to you. I also wanted to talk about something else that I found an article on, and this is just to talk about what is happening in the occupied territories that we never ever pay enough attention to. And it's a story that I found in the BBC, and it's a story about Natalia. This is not her real name, but she's a teacher, and she's holding classes for Ukrainian children. She couldn't tolerate living under Russian occupation in Melitopol, so she felt she was going to be much more useful in Ukraine itself in some form. And now she's spending all of her time giving online lessons to hundreds of children who were her former students. And she describes actually leaving and what she left behind and what is in these schools, what these children are subjected to, like in classrooms where they have to sing the Russian national anthem and write inspirational letters to Russian soldiers, criminals.
Under gunpoint.
Exactly. So she said, this is why I'm doing this. I want to save the minds of Ukrainian children. And so please pay attention to what is happening there. And this is the reason why we spend so much time talking about this, and especially what is going on in the occupied territories, is why the reason why we cannot allow Russia to keep any of that territory. Ukraine, that territory needs to be liberated. Back to you.
100%. On the U.S. front, Congress, before leaving for vacation, did manage to keep the government open and pass a spending bill. But of course, with the Republicans being Republicans, Marjorie Taylor Greene decided to put a motion in, which will be dealt with when they get back from vacation, to remove the Speaker of the House. So yet again, frankly, I am no fan of Speaker Johnson. He's literally assisted Russia in its genocide by blocking the bill of the desperately needed weapons for Ukraine. But now, if they come back in April and then, are dealing with choosing a new speaker for several months, like last time, or several weeks, like last time, then I mean, now we just don't even know when this aid package to Ukraine will go on the floor. I mean, it could be summer before, it gets there, if it ever gets there.
Yeah. Well, two things. One is that we hope at this point that Ukraine can keep going and hitting, the oil refineries themselves. We got news that Russia has lost 600,000 barrels, of daily oil refining capacity due to these drone attacks. So this is one thing. Another thing, as we were talking about before, sanctions do have some sort of an impact. There was one story out that it's a logistics problems that they're having now with the Russian locomotive repair and maintenance companies, who are struggling to acquire lubricants, bearings, and electronic components. They're having shortages, to delay, and they have to suspend nearly 50,000 trains. This came out in railfreight.com. So this is that's very interesting. So we hope that they can keep hitting right at those logistics and things like that.
Yes, please.
Yeah, back to you.
So speaking of earlier mobilization, there are reports that Russia plans to announce a new wave where they might seek to enlist up to 300,000 people to continue their genocidal invasion of Ukraine. The Kremlin today, Peskov stated that Russia now is officially at a war with Ukraine. And there are other reports that, well, not reports, the Russia's defense ministry stated that they're creating a new force of 100,000 soldiers to have them ready for the beginning of summer for a new offensive in Ukraine. So, I mean, at this point, going back to the Speaker Johnson, I really hope there's some kind of a deal where Dems, step in,
Yeah.
keep his speakership, and he signs off on the 8th so we could get these desperately needed weapons to Ukraine immediately in the case that there is going to be a new push by Russia, with a new wave of soldiers.
Yeah. And in the meantime, we're following what is happening in the EU and how they're stepping up as well. The Czech, right? The Czech ammunition initiative is going forward. The artillery initiative is going forward. Charles Michel said, okay, and these are big words because you need to understand the way the EU, I've talked about this before, I won't harp on it, but he said it's high time to put the EU's economy on a war footing, which of course has touched off all sorts of disinformation, all sorts of shills coming out. And he said, now that we are facing the biggest security threat since the Second World War, it's high time we take radical and concrete steps to be defense ready and put the EU's economy on a war footing. Okay, for those of you who do not know him, he is the European Council president. So these are not just, little words. At the same time, the EU has been meeting at a summit for the past 2 days, the EU Commission. There's a lot of things that have been announced. One of the things that really important is the frozen Russian assets and how they're going to be handling them. They're trying to get some sort of consensus among the 27 members. And this is what they're talking about. They also talked about Ukrainian security and also about the accession process for Ukraine and also Moldova, and a new member, okay, that is going to be joining Bosnia and Herzegovina, okay, as that. So hopefully getting stronger and staying united, because this is what is necessary right now.
Yep. The Insider did an investigation, and they found that in the first 17 months of Russia's full-scale war, Sibor, through their European subsidiary Sibor International GmbH, exported $3 billion worth of products from Vienna. In Vienna. The company's based in Vienna. So being based in Vienna, they're still able to carry on business as usual. So again, the West really needs to start enforcing their sanctions.
Exactly. And this is why we laughed last week when the two diplomats, quote unquote, because we know the way Austria operates. Okay. Another thing that I wanted to mention, that this Putin gave a speech, one of his, let's say, theatrical, his pieces of theater in front of millions of people. And he had announced a new railway line that will be running from Rostov-on-Don to Crimea, via occupied Ukraine. This is something that had already surfaced, quite a long time ago, maps and the whole thing. But this is why it's extremely important before this gets actually done, where they can again put up their defenses. And this is what happened, right, in 2022, during the winter time. So this is, we got to strike this. I hope that they start getting those drones ready.
Crimea
to bring
needs
this
to
down.
be liberated, end of story, and that's it.
Yep.
And every inch of territory of
That's
Ukraine
it.
needs to be returned. On my side, Washington Post reported that Western firms bought hundreds of millions of dollars of titanium metal from a Russian company with deep ties, which is basically connected to a front for Russia's defense industry after the full-scale 2022 invasion of Ukraine, and this is according to a Russian export data.
Okay. All righty. Last thing that I have, okay, on my side, is that Russian and Belarusian athletes are barred from the Paris Olympics opening ceremony. I think they should be barred, period. That's my own personal view.
A long time ago.
Because as we know, Russia uses sports as a way to influence and to get their
Spies.
thank you out there. Anyone who is involved in international sport knows it. So, okay, this is, I guess, maybe it's lip service over to the other countries that are present, so on and so forth. I hope that this will change with time. We should all be, telling Macron, come on, you're thinking about security. Do you want these people on your territory? Can we drop them a line somehow or another?
Besides, I don't think there has been one Olympics where Russia has not been caught up in a doping scandal of doping their athletes. So
Yep.
I mean, they just from last year, an investigation concluded that there was doping and whatnot. So I mean, just even that, Russia cheats, Russia steals, and that's that. One thing I want everyone to read, and we'll put the everything we talk about, we'll put the show links in the show notes. There was a investigation conducted where newly emerged evidence showed how Hungary and Russia worked together during the 2020 Slovak elections to help the Slovak government stay in power. And guess who was the middleman between this? Victor Orban, the same Victor Orban who just visited
congratulated. Yeah.
No, who just visited Trump at Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah.
So when the next time you see Trump mention Orban or an article mentioning the visit, just think he was a middleman between the Kremlin and the government in order to help the Kremlin keep that government in power.
Yep. So we'll be watching. It'll be Orban watch. Okay. From now on. The U.S. Treasury Department imposed sanctions Wednesday against two people and their Russian-based companies it accused of supporting a Kremlin-directed disinformation campaign involving the impersonation of legitimate websites. This is the doppelganger story and the development, of what thing. So this is actually a fantastic thing that they're going after this sort of thing. That's right.
And lastly, there are reports that Trump, who pardoned Paul Manafort, a Russian agent for 2 decades, who carried out operations for Russia across the globe in several countries, that Trump is considering bringing him back into his campaign, along with Corey Lewandowski, who he fired over sexual assault charges, and again, informally, Roger Stone, who, of course, is, was seen all over with Oath Keepers and other militia groups on January 6th.
Yeah.
So basically, Trump is reinstating his 2016 campaign.
I was just going to say.
And they are not making it a secret with Paul
No.
Manafort. They are not
No.
making it a secret that Russia will do everything publicly this time to attack the U.S. 2024 election.
That's right. Olga, anything else that we have to include? Is that it for the rest of the?
I think, with Russia, things can happen,
I know.
Hour on the hour, but I think for now this is definitely more than enough. We will include all the show notes. We will include all the links in the show notes on our Kremlin File Substack. So for anyone who wants to get more information on any of the stories that we covered. We'll have the links in there.
That's
Thank
right.
you.
And just to finish off, remember that part 2 of Natia's Seskuria's interview is coming out. Please watch it. It's really important because it's going to be, listen to it, because it will be all about the Black Sea strategy. This is a very, very important part, especially from what we're seeing now and how important it is. And all our prayers and all of our best wishes and hearts go out to what is going on in Ukraine right now.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody.
See you next week.
Hi, everybody. If you enjoyed this podcast and you'd like to help us out with our independent work, please subscribe to Kremlin File on Substack and on our YouTube channel. Kremlin File is hosted by Olga Lautman and me, Monique Camarra. Our production team is headed by Maddie Kaparov, and the theme music by Oreste Camarra. So please don't forget to visit our Kremlin File Substack for links to our socials and to wherever you'd like to listen to podcasts.